So, how hard is it for a president to change a company's culture? Come find out, as we'll be talking to two company presidents right now on The Leadership Voice. Welcome to The Leadership Voice. I'm your host, Jay Barbuto. This show features business and community leaders sharing their wisdom and insights around leadership and leadership development. Each episode features business and community leaders, faculty experts, a quote of the day, leadership countdown, a did you know, some leadership advice, and tonight we have two accomplished guests joining us, two presidents actually. We have Todd Talbot, president of Fluidmasters, Inc., and we also have Joe Hensley, Market President of U.S. Bank. We also have with us Dr. Lorenzo Bizzi with today's leadership lesson. There's more because we also have our quote of the day, a leadership countdown, some Q&A, and lots more. But let's start things off today with Leadership Voice's quote of the day. A leader takes people where they want to go, but a great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. That was Rosalind Carter. Our first guest currently serves as the president of Fluidmasters, Inc., the world's largest manufacturer of everything that goes inside of that porcelain art displayed in most bathrooms in the world. He has been recognized by the Center for Leadership at the 2016 Annual Leadership Awards for excellence in executive leadership for leading cultural change. He has served as president of Fluidmaster since 2011, during which time he has overseen the doubling of revenues from $150 million to $300 million, with a 400 basis point increase in profitability. His company operates worldwide and has captured nearly 60% of the U.S. market. Todd Talbot is also active in the community, serving on philanthropic boards. It is with great pleasure that I welcome to the Leadership Voice, Todd Talbot.
Thank you, Jay. It's good to see you again.
Todd, it's so great that you could be here today.
It's always nice to be on campus. Makes me feel a little bit younger.
It should. And now you've been at Fluidmaster for 5 years as its president. A lot of people don't know much about the company. But as I understand it, your company makes everything that goes inside of a toilet?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't really make you very unique. I think we all do that.
Well, if we're all healthy, hopefully we're doing that every day. But when I show up at work, I continue to do it all day long. We actually make all the plastic component parts that go inside your toilet. So if you go home tonight, you lift up the tank behind the bowl, you look inside, there's an 80% chance that came from our company at Fluidmaster. We sell our products to OEM, original equipment manufacturers like Kohler and American Standard. We produce all their internal components. In turn, big retailers like the Home Depot, Lowe's, Walmart, or an Ace Hardware store are big customers of ours to get all your repair parts 7, 8, 10 years down the road. And of course, the plumbing contractors around the country and around the world are big customers of ours as well. The company itself was founded in 1957 by Adolf Schoppe, still a family-ran company. His son is our current chairman of the board and obviously who I work for. We have 1,750 employees scattered around the world. Our focus has been very global here over the course of the last 3 to 5 years. We've done acquisitions in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Slovenia, Istanbul, Turkey, just to name a few. We operate from 7 facilities, inclusive of our original facilities in Monterrey, Mexico, and in China.
Wow, that's amazing how widespread everything in your company has become and continues to be as you have growth planned moving forward as well. You know, on our last show, we were asked which book we would recommend, and I wondered if there was any book you might recommend for other people to read? Something that might capture the spirit or culture of your company.
Well, the spirit of our company, we spend a lot of time doing strategy work and things of that nature to try to deliver the best for our business and our shareholders. And it really comes down to a simple, basic truth. And it's captured in this children's book, Everybody Poops. And as long as everybody poops, the strategy and the culture of our business go forward. But on a more serious note, I will say that I'm always cautious about suggesting books to people. I oftentimes tell people to read a book, and it seems like for the next month in the board meeting or on the manufacturing floor, they're regurgitating that book. But with that said, and really talking about culture, I think there's two books that caught my eye early in life, and they might be oldies, but they're goodies. And the first one is simply called Fish, and it's the story of the Pike Place Fish Market up in Seattle, Washington, which really brings out and talks about fun at work. Because if we're not having fun at work, then the culture is going to be very, very negative. The second book that I always recommend, and another fun, quick read, is a book called Gung Ho. And kind of a spiritual-based background, but really gets into the diversity of cultures that exist within our business and how we can effectively manage them for the betterment of the business. Just a couple of quick notes, but both those books, a guy named Ken Blanchard touched in one way or another. And anytime I can point people in a direction, it's guys like Ken Blanchard, Tom Peter Drucker, Jack Welch, Ronald Reagan, great leaders, great culturemen, and people that have really made a difference. I often just tell people, listen, read a lot of books, talk to a lot of people, have a lot of mentors, because that diversity is what's going to drive success in your business and your culture.
Oh, that's great. So, Todd, you've been at Fluidmasters since 2011, when you took over as its president. Tell our viewers, were there any special challenges or troubles that your company needed to overcome?
Well, let me just tell you what I walked into, and then you can figure out what challenges I had, because the list was pretty long. The company had been in business since 1957, very successful, but from 2001 to 2011, the compounded annual growth rate of the business was less than 1%. Mind you, we're in the building product space when things were booming early in this century. The profit had peaked in 2003. When I walked in, we were about 2/3 of that profit level. The turnover in the business over the last 2 years was in excess of 30%, and at the time I walked through the door was over 17%. A 55-year-old company, all the tribal knowledge was running out the door. You can begin to see my problem. Externally, our customers thought we were arrogant. We had a pretty strong market share, and that arrogance was showing with our customers. And probably in a really bad sense, the relationship between our board of directors and the management had a lot of distrust to it. And those are the things that really start to add up to really create a situation where you have to turn a company around and make a difference. I will tell you, if I had the ability back then to probably be more intelligent and look on Glassdoor or some other internet site, I probably wouldn't have shown up here.
No, well, so what did you do to overcome some of these things?
Well, the most simple thing, and really, again, speaking of culture, is to ensure that you have employee engagement in your business and getting your people connected back in the business, having them see purpose and understand the business. And the biggest way to do that is through communication. So I love getting in front of our employees around the world. People know that I travel quite a bit, and really what I do is what I call management by wandering. Get around and get out and be with the people. Have a high degree of visibility. We've started some very successful communication programs. We do a huddle meeting every couple of weeks. I believe in a very open door, open book society. Business is a competitive game. I like to share how we're doing in the game and how we're winning the game, and articulate our visions, the success of the business, and open up that level of communication so our people can really understand the purpose of our work and understand that they have a purpose in coming into work every day and to make a difference in the business. I think the second thing that we've all learned is to really be humble, okay, but also to incorporate some significant humility into our business, keep ourselves balanced. As I said, we're very arrogant as far as our customers were concerned. We had to change that. I was blessed by walking into this company that our founder, Mr. Shopey, he had several key things that he always promoted in the business, and one of them was be a good citizen in the community. So he took that one little line, and we've really ran with it. And to get our people engaged not only only in our business, but understand that our business means something than just making profit for our shareholders, we've really extended ourselves out into the community and reached out to organizations like the Boy Scouts, like the Habitat for Humanity, the Boys and Girls Club, not only for the purposes of helping those organizations, but to make our people realize that there is something beyond work, okay, and allow them to understand that there is purpose beyond work, and again, create a positive attitude. It turns out to be great team building events when you're out swinging a hammer together and making a difference in the community. The other thing that I really like to do is make sure that we all have a sense of humor and bring fun into the workplace. Obviously, we work in the toilet business, okay? I'm a potty peddler, all right? And what we do day in and day out, we can have a lot of fun with.
How's business this week?
It's kind of crappy, but we're going to hope for a better week next week. But these are the things that we need to do, and that's why I promote that book about, the Fish book about fun. Having fun in the organization in combination with a little bit of humility and in combination with good communication has really created an environment that's been uniquely different.
No, that's great. So when you think about cultural change and some of the things you had to do, because when you came to Fluidmaster, there was a culture that was there greeting you, and then there was, like you said, you had to make some changes to that culture. Could you talk about how the culture has maybe changed?
Well, yeah, and I think what I'll do is, in lieu of directly answering that, it's like when I got here, we had a long list of problems, and now we have a long list of successes, okay? We've gone from a very difficult work environment to where here in Orange County, we are rated the last 4 years in a row by our employees one of the top workplaces here in Orange County. Our 144 people that are based here in Orange County love what they do, and of course, then that spreads to all 7, 8 of our locations around the world, and that begins to generate a lot of great things. Our relationship with our customers has totally turned around. People like the Home Depot and Lowe's, they look to us not only because we're fun to work with, but because we bring leadership and a new dynamic to their business. There's trust throughout the organization. Our relationship, my relationship with our shareholders, the board of directors, all that has been totally turned around to create this positive environment. And really, if you go to when you introduced me so kindly, obviously the financial success of the business to go from, basically no growth and declining profits to the point where we're blowing away record profit numbers and able to reinvest in our business. And our people see that. We're able to go places around the world, take our earnings, reinvest, and drive the growth of the business. It really just makes a difference for the organization.
No, so that's terrific. We have time for just one more question, Todd. So as you look back at your career, you've had many senior leadership roles. Your journey has taken you to many companies and many different opportunities. What is maybe perhaps the biggest thing or some of the biggest things that you've learned along the way that you wish you'd known at the beginning of your career?
Well, I appreciate that. And a lot of things you can think about, but let me keep it relatively simple. And first off, I hope my wife's not watching this because she'll probably slap me over this. But the biggest thing that I've learned or had to learn is patience.
Except not with her, of course.
Well, I'm trying. The thing is in a leadership role, most of us are A type of people, and we want to move and drive and get things done. And I've learned, obviously, that organizations don't quite move as fast as me. So having that patience is a great virtue. I was mentored by one of my senior executives when I worked for Masco Corporation. He said very clear to me when I took a leadership role, he said, as you get started, it's easy to push a lot of buttons to create a lot of change. The hardest thing to do is to pull those buttons back out, and it is very, very difficult. So being patient with yourself makes a big difference. I think the other thing that I've learned, and I'm blessed to be in a business that allows me to do this, is don't take myself too seriously. Obviously, we're in the toilet space, and we have a lot of fun with it each and every day, and that fun's an important part of our work. And we take that fun into a lot of ways. Today we're recording. It's a Friday. It's still kind of summer here in Southern California, and it's actually Flip-Flop Friday. So
yeah, I noticed.
I am in my flip-flops, and we'll go back to the office with my flip-flops on to celebrate the day with 288 other pairs of flip-flops that are running around the office. But I say not to take myself too seriously for really the betterment of the organization. Leadership role, you can take yourself seriously and try to do everything, and by not taking myself seriously, it really allows our people to excel and allows the business to excel through what they can do in the business, and that's what we need is those people, those 1,750 employees to make the business run.
Well, that's terrific. I want to thank you, Todd, for coming on The Leadership Voice today and joining us and sharing your insights and wisdom of your many years working in several industries. Todd, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's always great to see you, and thank you for what you're doing in our community through the center.
All right, it's just a pleasure. Now it's time for our featured segment of the Leadership Voice. It's time for Did You Know? This is from entrepreneur.com. A Columbia University study shows that the likelihood of job turnover at an organization with rich company culture is a mere 13.9%, whereas the probability of job turnover in poor company cultures is 48.4%. As you can see, if your company can develop rich company culture, overall your employees will be more satisfied working for your organization and be less inclined to leave the company because they feel valued. Well, now it's that time of the show when we do the Leadership Voice's Leadership Countdown. Every episode, the Leadership Voice provides you, our viewers, with a leadership countdown that closely relates to the theme of this show. Today's show features company heads making all the difference. So now, the Leadership Voice brings you the top 5 traits of great leaders, right here in today's Leadership Countdown. Number 5, you must have character. Do you know yourself and do you understand your personality? You should, because it shapes who you are as a leader. Number 4, you must be a team builder. Assemble a great team and inspire confidence in them. That will be a key. The number 3 characteristic of great leaders is that you must be a great decision maker. And being a great decision maker oftentimes comes down to several things. But one approach is called the QCAP method. The QCAP method involves quick but not hasty, committed but not rigid, analytical but don't overanalyze, thoughtful but don't be obsessive. The number 2 most important characteristic of a great leader is you must have passion. Employees want passion and will go to the ends of the earth when it exists. Can you think of a great leader that has no passion? Of course you can't. There are none. And now the number 1 reason, the number 1 characteristic of great leaders. Number 1 is you must have a vision. You must stand for something or you'll fall for everything. And that, viewers, is your Leadership Countdown right here on the Leadership Voice. Up next, we will have Joe Hensley in the studio. We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Well, we found here at Honda Center and the Anaheim Ducks that the Center for Leadership brings expertise in doing research, in doing training. The faculty that has come and given the training to our employees does all the research themselves. They're not pulling this information off the shelf. They're out there researching themselves, talking from firsthand experience, and it brings such a level of competency that we, again, don't find from other trainers that are on the market.
Well, simply put, is what really differentiates and distinguishes Fullerton and the Center for Leadership, really is your expertise. You guys are able to create customized content for our business based on true research.
The faculty from Cal State Fullerton, obviously they're professors of their field. They have deep knowledge in research, but also, aside from the theory, they really bring in some practical examples and they bring in a lot of interactive activities.
The Bringing Learning to Work initiative is our way of meeting the needs of Orange County businesses and communities. When our clients ask the Center for Leadership to come to bring learning to work, the clients know that they're getting cutting-edge information, the latest thinking in the field, but they're also getting world-class training. Hello, and welcome back to the Leadership Voice. Our next guest has a decorated 36 years of banking experience. He began his banking career as a teller at the age of 18 while working his way through college. He now serves U.S. Bank as its market president for Orange County and its 1,432 employees. He is active in the community and he's an all-around great person. We at the Leadership Voice are pleased to welcome Joe Hensley. Joe, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jay. It's always a pleasure to be here on campus.
It's so great to have you on the Leadership Voice today to share your journey and to tell us about some of the insights that you've learned during your career. Now, you're at U.S. Bank as the market president. Could you tell us what the role of a market president actually entails?
Absolutely. I break it down into really 3 different categories. I am the face of the bank in the community, is probably one of the roles that I play. And part of the way I am represent the bank and its 1,400 employees is I'm on a number of different boards. I serve the community in a number of different ways. I encourage service from our employees. And actually, Orange County, which is beautiful as far as our employees go, is in the top 3 in the nation as far as employee engagement and serving in our community. So I'm very proud of that and proud of our employees. That's one part of it. The other part of that piece is we also look at certain endowments or certain opportunities to give in the community, and I head up the board that makes those decisions to where our funds go in what we call our endowment or community possible.
Okay, and so your career has taken you a long way. I mean, you started off as a bank teller, and through different promotions along the way, you've really worked your way up from the ground floor up to a very prestigious position as market president for Orange County. Did you ever think back when you were a teller that you'd end up being in this role?
Not initially. I took a teller role. I was studying to be in the ministry, and I minored in music. And so I took a part-time job as a teller because the hours worked out with my schedule at school. And it was about 4 years in that I started thinking, this might not be a bad career. I was working part-time at a church doing the music for that church. And so during the day, I was a teller, and I started changing at that point. And how it changed was I thought, what would I want to be? And I really had a lot of respect for our president. And I met him one day and asked him if I could have some of his time. And he spent an hour and a half telling me his story. And that really changed my view on what I wanted to do with my life.
Now, that's wonderful. Now, when you look back and you think about the different people that you've had a chance to work with and that might have influenced you, are there any people that really stand out that really made a difference in your life?
Absolutely. Mentoring is a big deal to me, and I've had a number of mentors over the years. Some of them have been very minor. Probably the most major one was a pastor that I had that I worked with. I did the music there, and we were involved. But I learned a lot from him, and I still have some of the habits that I've learned from him. Like when we were walking into a church, he would stop and pick up trash along the way and do different things because everything had to be done by him or by us. In the same way, I find myself sometimes in the morning walking through the parking lot and picking up trash and disposing it, and all the things that he taught me that just carried over into this professional career.
Yeah, and that's a great story. And we see a lot of examples of people who don't leave it for other people to do some of the details, to do things that need to be done. I remember I saw on LinkedIn just this morning that you'll never see any successful person that leaves the shopping cart in the middle of the parking lot.
Right.
And that's very similar to what you're describing, because we really, there's a tendency that folks that are really achieving things usually are trying to do the right things.
For a minute there, I thought you were following me at Ralph's because I always put my shopping cart back.
Oh, that's great. Now, you came from very humble beginnings. I think, and you've talked about that in other times. I've heard you speak before.
Yes.
Could you talk about some of the biggest struggles you had to overcome to get to where you are now?
Wow. When you're raised with a certain paradigm, I was a truck driver's son. All of my family was truck drivers. My uncles, my brothers, everybody was a truck driver. So naturally,
you could have been a truck driver.
I thought I would grow up and be a truck driver. So education wasn't a big thing for me at that age. I didn't focus a lot on my educational attainment. But then when I graduated high school, I thought, I'm not sure I want to do that the rest of my life. And that's when I made a decision and went on to college. And but the struggle primarily, I would say, is not going ahead and finishing my education. That cost me in my banking career because I didn't finish my degree till I was in my 40s. In my banking career, I'd say it cost me somewhere between 6 and 7 years of my life because I didn't have the training that allowed me to step into a management training role. I had to learn it all on the job. So it was a little tougher.
Yeah. Now, you've worked as market president. Where were you just before being market president at U.S.
I was
Bank?
in Louisville, Kentucky for U.S. Bank.
Also for U.S. Bank. Now, as you look at your career, and specifically at U.S. Bank, have you had to change the culture of what's happening at U.S. Bank?
You know, the culture, the beauty of U.S. Bank is the culture is pretty much ingrained in each of us because we wrote it. It's usually a mission statement is a top-down statement. We present it and people learn it, and you know, or if they don't learn it, if you ask a number of people what their mission statement is, they won't be able to repeat it. But in our world, we sort of did it from bottom up. We asked our employees, who are we? What do you think we are? How would you best describe us? And so it came more from a bottom-up perspective, and it's very real, and our people own it because it defines who we are. And quite honestly, our purpose is we invest our hearts and minds to power human potential.
You know, Joe, you've got such great insights to share. I mean, you've traveled, you've really had such great roles during your career. Could you talk, if you look back at your career and you think about the things that you've learned along the way, is there anything that you wish you'd known at the very beginning that you've now learned through your 36-year banking career? Things you wish you'd known when you were 18?
Yes, I would have to say it would, again, go back to education. I wish I would have gone ahead and finished my degree immediately. There's so many reasons why. One, having grown up the way I did, I was a very direct communicator. That caused me issues early on, and the word tact was not in my vocabulary at that time, and so I had a number of lessons on learning to be tactful, some of which you could learn in college. You can learn by being in those social settings that I wasn't in. So that's my primary one. I think that would have taken care of a lot of things for me, would have propelled me much quicker, but at the same point, you know, the path that I took has taught me well, and I finally learned the lesson over the years.
Yeah, it sounds like you sure did. And I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Leadership Voice today. Joe, having you here to share your wisdom and insights and your experience is such a treat for our viewers here on the Leadership Voice. So, Joe, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Joe Hensley.
Thank you, Jay. My pleasure.
Are you ready to learn? Every show we bring you a special 3-minute lesson that will provide you, our viewers, with a practical and well-informed mini talk. Albert Einstein once said, "If you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough." We at the Leadership Voice want to help all leaders become better by sharing insights, lessons, wisdom, and by taking complex ideas and making them inherently practical. Each episode, we invite an expert to give you a 3-minute lesson in leadership. It's now time for the Leadership Voice's Leadership Lesson. Joining us today on the Leadership Voice is Professor Lorenzo Bizzi, who will be talking to us about the role of presidents in changing corporate culture and the common pitfalls that may be faced.
Hello, I am Lorenzo Bizzi, and this is today's Leadership Lesson, which is about the top 3 mistakes leaders make when trying to change organizational culture. The organizational culture is a powerful resource to build and sustain competitive advantage. It leads to benefits such as strategic direction, employee engagement, and lower need to control your employees. However, there is a problem. Changing organizational culture is very difficult. Why so? Because change and organizational culture are characterized by inherent tensions that create problems for leaders. There are three tensions which create three common mistakes leaders make, and they can be solved with three solutions that we are going to see. The first tension between change and culture creates a first problem. Change requires new rules and processes that can be codified, written, explained, communicated. But culture is the set of norms that cannot be codified. They are implicit and tacit, feelings, emotions. The mistake leaders make is to try to change culture creating new rules and processes, which is ineffective. The solution is to find those employees in the network of relationships who have disproportionate influence and get their commitment to share values, behaviors, and practices. The second tension between change and culture creates another problem. Change generates uncertainty, but culture is there to reduce uncertainty and is change resistant. The mistake leaders make is to consider resistance to change as irrational, as a weakness of employees. But resistance to change is often rational and explained by the fact that employees understand the costs of change, but not the need for change. The solution is to make problems visible, to create a sense of urgency, show the problems. Cultural change does not have to appear as a desire for improvement, but as a necessity for success. The third tension between change and culture creates yet another problem. Change requires efficient use of resources, but culture is inefficient at change and requires massive use of resources. The mistake leaders make is to try to change the whole organization at once. The solution is to start allocating resources to high potential areas which require little commitment of resources but have high potential for improvement, to quickly show to all other areas the benefits of cultural change. So cultural change is difficult because there are tensions between culture and change, but understanding those tensions is the key for an effective cultural change. I am Lorenzo Bizzi, and this has been your Leadership Lesson.
Thank you, Professor Bizzi, for your insights into the pitfalls of CEO decisions and changing culture. It's now that point in the show when we do Leadership Voices Q&A. This is where we take questions from you, our viewers, and we answer them right here on the show. If you have any questions that you'd like us to consider answering, please send them to us. You can email it or you can tweet us. The email address is leadershipvoice@fullerton.edu, or you can tweet us at CSUF_leadership. Our first question comes from Jonathan in Fullerton, California. He asks, what must you sacrifice to become a great leader? You know, one of the things about moving up in the ranks into leadership roles is that there's a tendency, once we arrive, to want to take charge and show off our great insights. But the thing that separates great leaders is their ability to use the talent of those around them. The late Steve Jobs from Apple once said, "It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and then tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do." In many ways, this is very true because the most successful leaders have to sacrifice their ego and their control to really shine. Our next question comes from Jasper in Zhangzhou, Wuhan, China. He asks, how can leaders positively cope with inevitable failures to inspire their followers? This is a great question. What defines great leaders isn't how they succeed, but rather how they recover from failure. Leaders must continuously learn and create a learning climate in the workplace for everyone to learn. This will develop the collective wisdom in organizations, and it is this personal constant drive for continuous improvement that will provide the most positive climate for leadership to cope with failures and inspire followers. Our final question comes from Jason in Costa Mesa. He asks, when replacing a leader that was effective and well-liked by his team, however, was not following company's direction or achieving the desired business results, what are some of the best practices for a new leader? You know, anytime you replace another leader, the worst thing you can do is come in and criticize your predecessors. So the most constructive way of doing things is to communicate your ideology, your values, and communicate that these are consistent with the company's corporate values. And rather than chastising the previous regime, it is more constructive to communicate that we aim to build on what has already been done, not destroy it, and find innovative and focused strategies for collective advancement. In other words, we want to take things to the next level. This has been the Leadership Voices Q&A. If you have any questions or need advice, send it to us by email or Twitter, leadershipvoice@fullerton.edu, or tweet us at CSUF_leadership. This wraps up our show today. Thank you especially to our special guests today, Todd Talbot, President of Fluidmaster, and Joe Hensley, President of US Bank, and our special faculty leadership lesson from Professor Bizzi. Join us each episode of the Leadership Voice as we will have 2 more executive guests, plus we will have another special leadership lesson, another leadership countdown, and lots more worth tuning into the show. I'm Jay Barbuto, and we'll see you next time right here on the Leadership Voice.